Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing my December TBR. Alright guys, I cannot believe we only have a month left of 2023, and there are so many books I still need to get to. So I have a mix of fantasy romance and contemporary romance books. Now I will say this TBR is pretty ambitious. Some of these books are pretty long, but I really want to read them, so hopefully I can get through this entire TBR. So there's a mix of fantasy romance and contemporary romance, and if you're looking for a certain genre, utilize those timestamps down below. And if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the books I want to read in December. So starting off with fantasy romance, first up is actually a reread. I want to reread Crescent City 2, House of Sky and Breath in preparation for Crescent City 3, and that is going to be releasing at the end of January. So I will say I was not the biggest fan of House of Sky and Breath. I feel like the pacing was very slow. You get a lot of information that I'm sure is going to be relevant in the later books. Just while I was reading this, I was kind of bored. So I'm not really looking forward to rereading this book. However, I do plan on posting a recap video. So that way, if you guys don't have time to do a reread, you can watch the recap video before reading Crescent City 3. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the plot of Crescent City, just as a whole, this will be spoiler-free. We are following Bryce Quinlan, and she is a half-fae living in Lunathian, which is this city that has like all of these different kind of like paranormal creatures. So you have like vampires, fae, things of that nature, but then there are also humans. Anyway, something very tragic ends up happening to Bryce, and she has to solve a murder, and she ends up being reluctantly partnered with Hunt Athalar, who is a fallen angel, and together they have to solve this murder. And it is their story, and it is really good. I will also say, if you're a fan of SJM and you haven't picked up this series yet, it is urban fantasy. So it feels very different from her other works. Just know that going in, because when I first started, it was a little jarring, but overall, I am so excited for CC3 and just cannot wait for that book to come out. All right, guys, and next up for fantasy romance, we have the Hurricane Wars. So this is actually Fairy Loot's special edition, and I will say it is absolutely stunning. I think this is the prettiest book I own by them. But anyway, this was the October Fairy Loot pick, and this just sat on my shelf for a while. I hadn't heard anything about it. And then when the Goodreads Choice Awards came out, this is actually nominated as one of the top romantasy books. So now I am very intrigued, so I definitely want to read this in December. All I know about this is it is enemies to lovers, slow burn, and apparently it started out as Kylo Ren fanfic. So I'm interested. We will see how I feel. I will say I was looking through the reviews, and it actually seems to have a decent amount of negative reviews, mostly talking about the pacing, so I'm kind of worried about that. But overall, I'm interested, so I will definitely be reading this very early in December. And next up, we have Powerless. So this is actually YA fantasy, but it's been gaining a lot of popularity recently, and I've had a few friends that have read it that really enjoyed it. So I'm interested. This is going to be the first book in a trilogy, I believe, and we're following this girl that lives in this community where everyone is known as elites because they're very powerful. However, if you are born in this community and you don't have any power, you're known as being ordinary, and they kind of like shun you and send you away. So our main character in this has been pretending to be a psychic for a very long time, and then she actually ends up saving somebody, I believe a prince, and then because of this, she is thrown into this, I think it's like a tournament or something like that, where she has to showcase her powers. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any. So, I don't know, it sounds like it'll be a lot of fun, and I am very excited to pick this up. And next up, I am finally going to read Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is the sequel to Serpent and the Wings of Night. So I read Serpent and the Wings of Night, I think, December of last year, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Like, I really enjoyed it. However, there was no audiobook for the sequel, and finally the audiobook has released, so I will definitely be reading this along with Six Scorched Roses, which is the prequel novella, which also was recently released via audio. So I'm so excited. But anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the story of Serpent and the Wings of Night, we are following this girl named Oria, who's a human girl that was adopted by a vampire king. So she's been raised among vampires pretty much her entire life, and when she comes of age, she decides that she's gonna enter this tournament known as the Kajari, and she will battle against other vampires to the death in hopes of being the only survivor and being granted a wish from the goddess Nyaxia. So that is what happens in Serpent in the Wings of Night, and then this is the sequel, and I need to know what happens. So I am so excited to pick this up, and this will probably be another one of the books that I read very early in December. And on December 5th, Gold by Raven Kennedy is going to release, and I cannot wait. So if you're unfamiliar with the Plated Prisoner series, Gold is book 5, and book 4 ended on the most crazy of crazy cliffhangers. So book 5, I'm going to read this book in one sitting. Like, I cannot wait. So if you're unfamiliar with the Plated Prisoner series as a whole, the first book we are following RN, and it is a King Midas reimagining. So RN is King Midas's gilded pet. So everything Midas touches turns to gold, and he has gold touched RN and pretty much keeps her as almost like a trophy in his kingdom, and she has absolutely no autonomy. All she cares about is drinking wine and making sure that Midas is happy. And then something causes her to have to leave the kingdom, and her eyes finally start to open, and the story really goes from there. But I will say, the first book, you are going to be so frustrated because RN is really annoying. And like I said, she has no autonomy, and just watching her be so subservient will drive you insane. However, as you progress through the series, RN really grows as a character, and she comes into her own, and I love her so much. So I am so excited to finally read Gold when it releases. And last up for fantasy romance, we have Throne of the Fallen, which is the first adult fantasy romance by Kerri Maniscalco. Now, this is the same author that wrote Kingdom of the Wicked, and actually I think this book is set in the same world. However, that was technically considered YA into new adult, although I would probably classify those last two books as adult. Like, they were pretty spicy. But this is her first, technically adult work. Now, although this is set in the same world as the Kingdom of the Wicked books, I don't believe you have to have read that series in order to read this. This is considered a standalone. I did read that series, and while I did enjoy the first book, the second and the third book didn't really work for me. But I'm intrigued. I really think this is going to be pretty good. So this is following one of the 7 princes of hell, I believe, Envy, that we met in Kingdom of the Wicked, and I think it's his romance. So this should be really good. I'm interested to see what she does with adult. She also has a very popular YA series, the Jack the Ripper series, which I read the first 3 books, and I do actually want to finish eventually because I was really enjoying it. So yeah, I'm so excited to pick this up, and we'll hopefully be reading this in December. The next 3 books on this list are all Christmas romances. So first up we have Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. I actually just bought this yesterday on Black Friday, and I am very excited to read this. I know a lot of my friends read this last year, however, there was no audiobook available, and now there is. So I will definitely be reading this soon. So this is following, I believe, 2 friends that end up fake dating, and then they end up getting their happily ever after. So it sounds very cute. I also want to read In the Weeds or Into the Weeds, which is, I believe, the second book in this series that a lot of my friends really enjoyed. So I'm hoping to pick that up in 2024. But yes, this is one of the top holiday romances that I want to read this year. And the holiday romance I am most anticipating is 'Tis the Season for Revenge. So I had the biggest case of FOMO last year because everyone was reading this book and giving it 5 stars and saying how funny it was and just how it's their favorite holiday romance. And there was no audiobook available, and I just could not concentrate to read it physically, and now there is. So I believe the audiobook for this either just came out or is coming out the first week of December, and I am downloading that book the day it is available. I want to see if it is worth all of the hype. But yeah, so that is the holiday romance I am most looking forward to, 'Tis the Season for Revenge. And last up for holiday romances, I want to read Tangled and Tinsel, literally just because of the name and the cover. I have had some friends that read this and absolutely hated it, but it's a novella, so even if it's not good, it's really short, and there is an audiobook available. So I believe this is following a girl who ends up getting snowed in with 4 guys that she works with, and they just have a naughty, spicy, fun time. So last year, I think I actually vlogged reading Gifting Me to His Best Friend, which also is a holiday romance novella, and I actually really liked that one. So I'm hoping same kind of thing happens, but we will see. And last up, I need to read Saving 6 and Redeeming 6 by the end of December. Now, these are both very, very long books, and unfortunately, the audio for Redeeming 6 has not been released yet. However, there are some dates online that are floating around that are saying early December, so I really hope this audiobook comes out in early December. If not, I am not positive this is going to get read by the end of December just because this book is long. But I do have the audiobook for Saving 6, and I am both very, very nervous and also very excited to pick this book up. I know it is going to emotionally destroy me. So if you're unfamiliar with the Boys of Tommen series, the first 2 books are following Johnny and Shannon. So Shannon is this young girl, I believe she's 15 at the start of the story, and she has a terrible home life. Her father is very abusive, and her mother is kind of passive and doesn't really do a lot to help Shannon at the home. Now, Shannon is also being bullied relentlessly at school, so her mother does decide to pull her out of school and send her to Tommen University. Now, on Shannon's first day, she is walking across the rugby court, and she gets hit in the head with a rugby ball, and standing over her when she wakes up is Johnny Kavanaugh, and he's actually like a almost professional rugby player, but he still has to attend this high school, and it is their romance. And I cried. I ugly cried so many times throughout the second book in this series. Oh my goodness. But it was so, so good and one of my top books of the year. So I am very nervous about Joey's story, who's actually Shannon's older brother, just because you do get to see him in the first 2 books, and this kid is just going through it. So much has happened to him, and he's struggling with addiction and other things. Definitely check all the trigger warnings because there are some dark topics in these books. But I cannot wait. I know Joey is going to be my favorite character, so this should be really good and one of the books I am most looking forward to reading in December. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Those are all the books I plan on reading in December, and please let me know down in the comments below if you plan on reading any of the books I mentioned. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!